Hi, welcome to this look at the 14-day weather forecast. Well, February is certainly turning into quite an exceptional month. The second week brought very cold conditions, but it has turned a lot milder since then. And to the 22nd of the month, the provisional central England temperature is 4.6 Celsius, which is actually 1 Celsius above the 30-year average. So that cold period has been completely offset by the much milder conditions. Now, are those mild conditions set to stay with us as we go through the next couple of weeks? Well, I'll start by taking a look at the picture across Europe and the North Atlantic. This is beginning at 9 GMT on Tuesday the 23rd of February. What we can see at the outset is outbreaks of rain to the northwest of the UK, but it's drier as you head further south and east. Now, if I begin the sequence, let's see what happens. So, in the short term, that rain tends to push a little bit further south and east, but even tomorrow it's going to be dry in central and southeastern England, and that could lead to some very high temperatures. I'll come on to that in a moment. Now, let's just continue to see how it develops through the coming days. Initially, there's still outbreaks of rain affecting the northwest, but what we see by the Friday and the weekend is high pressures building up from the south across the UK, and it's having more influence across northern areas. So it is an increasingly settled picture by this point. There's still some rain in the far northwest of the United Kingdom, but most places by then are dry. If I just continue this through to its end, let's see what happens. And it's still high pressure dominating things through the end of February into the start of March and the meteorological spring. Even by the 2nd there's perhaps a little bit of rain affecting the northwest, but the vast majority of the UK is remaining under the influence of high pressure, and with winds coming from the south for most of that period of the southwest, temperatures are often likely to be well above the average. I'll just give you an illustration of that by showing the forecast maximum temperatures for Wednesday the 24th of February, and they really are well above the seasonal average. We can see values in East Anglia here according to the GFS reaching 17 Celsius. I wouldn't actually be surprised to see them a degree or two higher than that, 18 or just an outside chance of 19 Celsius. So I also mentioned that it's going to be becoming drier, and this chart shows the 5-day accumulated rainfall beginning on Tuesday the 23rd of February, and it's a northwest to southeast pattern, because in the short term there will be more rain in northwestern parts of the United Kingdom, but as you head further south and east it's drier as that continental high pressure has more and more influence. So what about the longer term? Well, this is the London 16-day GEFS plot. Shows upper air temperatures on the top half with precipitation on the lower part. What we can see out to about the 5th of March, it's mild or very mild upper air mass over the UK, which has been forecast. The thick black line there shows a 30-year mean, and we're well above it for much of the next 10 days. So, coupled to the fact that it also looks like it's going to be a mostly dry picture, there are very few rainfall spikes appearing on the lower part of the plot. It could feel very spring-like at times, certainly in the southern part of the United Kingdom. As I said, you can see that dip there in the upper air temperatures in the short term, and that's associated with somewhat cooler air pushing down from the northwest for a time, but then we see the upper air values recovering again. So it's going to become mild. It's going to go from very mild to mild, back up to very mild. Towards the end of the period, from about the 7th of March onwards, you can see there are some colder runs beginning to appear there, and they're not in a majority at this stage, but they are pulling down the mean of the ensemble. So it's suggesting the possibility of colder conditions developing during the second week of March, or at least more average conditions for the time of the year. There is some uncertainty there. You can see there's quite a big spread in 850 temperatures developing. with a number of runs keeping it well above the 30-year average and a number dropping down below. One point I would make is that at this time of the year, the sun's increasingly strong. So to get a real freeze like we saw in March 2018, what you actually need to see is these 850 temperatures dipping down to about -15 Celsius, -10, -15. Anything in the sort of 0 to -5, it's not likely to produce very cold weather at this time of the year with that increasingly strong sun. If I just show you the 2-meter temperature forecast spread for the next 16 days, this is quite interesting. You can see in the short term we've got this very mild day to come on the 24th, where, as I said, temperatures across much of the south, 17, 18, just possibly 19 Celsius could be reached in one or two places. They then sort of tail away a little bit, so this is where we're going into the mild rather than very mild category. But then sort of later on you see there's a number of very mild runs there appearing again, and towards the end of the plot what we see is that sort of big spread occurring, and I think some of that's to do with diurnal day to night variations. So we could be seeing some mild or very mild days, but with clear skies and high pressure possibly increasingly in charge centered over the UK. That would lead to night times being quite chilly and possibility of frost and fog returning. If I just jump ahead to the Glasgow chart, this is for the next 16 days as well. It's a comparable plot to the one we saw for London, and really the trends are quite similar. Perhaps a key difference of it's not hugely different, but perhaps a significant difference is towards the very end there you see a stronger signal than on the London chart for it to turn colder. But even there, that's a long way out. I think it's just worth quickly taking a look at the forecast pressure patterns. This is for Birmingham. I've picked it because it's a relatively central location. It's showing the output from all the runs in the GEFS ensemble model, and each column is representing one day. The browns and the pinks are showing very high pressure. In fact, the sort of pinky red colours you can see here, these days indicates the highest category that is labelled on this chart, so over 1,040 millibars. And you can see just here we've got 84% of runs on Saturday, the 27th of February, falling into that category. Towards the end of the period, more yellows and greens appear. There's even a purple at the top right of the plot. That's suggesting a sort of downwards trend in pressure from these initial very high levels. So high pressure possibly beginning to become less influential as we go through the middle third of March. But again, that's also a long way off. If it did happen, it would suggest a sort of increasing risk of rain, as perhaps more of an Atlantic influence began to make its presence felt. What about the longer term? So just a very quick peek at the second half of March using the 35-day GFS plots. And what you can really see, this one's for York, but it's quite representative of many of them across the UK. We can see temperatures dipping back down to around about the 35-year average or slightly below it. So you can see the thick black line going across there as the 30-year average, sorry, not the 35. So it becomes, after that very mild start to the month through the first third of March, the trend shown on this is for cooler or perhaps colder conditions. It's not the mean of the ensemble there isn't really dipping a long way below the 30-year average, but it's certainly suggesting a more typical picture as we go through the middle and second half of March than is likely to be the case during the first 10 days or so. This is the comparable 2-meter 35-day ensemble plot. The previous one was the upper air temperatures at about 1,500 meters. This one's showing the temperatures that we experienced down at the ground level. Again, you can see the black line going across it, which shows the 30-year mean. Initially, most of the runs are sort of well above that 30-year mean, but they do drop back down as we go through the period. So more average conditions probably developing during the middle third of the month and through the second half of the month. So to summarise that, it's an unsettled start in the north and west of the UK with further outbreaks of rain. In the south and east, it's mainly dry and very mild, even exceptionally mild for a time. Temperatures will dip a little bit after the first couple of days, but they still remain above the average across the UK. And towards the end of the first week, as high pressure becomes more influential and builds northwards, it turns more settled across all areas. And if anything, temperatures will be increasing again, at least during the daytimes. During week 2, it's high pressure, which keeps things mostly settled for most of a week. The days should see temperatures close to or above the average. In fact, they could rise significantly above the average at times, but nights will be chilly and there is a risk of frost and fog returning as high pressure leads to clear skies. Towards the very end of the second week, it may begin to turn more changeable. There's a signal for high pressure's influence to begin weakening, but that is a long, long way off. There's also a possibility of it turning somewhat colder towards that time as well. So in the short to medium term, it's going to be a mild picture, increasingly settled weather and quite spring-like for much of the country once the initial rain in the north and west fades away. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed some of the new graphics which I tried out today. Hopefully they'll be perfected by the time I produce next week's video. As ever, if you enjoyed it and found it useful, please do hit the subscribe and like buttons below. Thanks very much now. Bye.